Hey guys, you are watching Team APS. I'm with Trell, and today we're going to share what we think are the 5 most confusing rules for new Yu-Gi-Oh players, or just Yu-Gi-Oh in general.
In general, because people who have been playing forever still have these issues.
Yu-Gi-Oh is actually, in its defense, a rather simple game, I think, to kind of hop in and enjoy, at least compared to certain other games that are a little more complicated. But there are some rules in Yu-Gi-Oh that can be really confusing, and you kind of, the worst part about them is you kind of encounter them only after you start playing a bit, and they're not always spelled out in the rulebook. So we thought it would be fun to share some of them. Exuse Materials. Exuse Materials not being considered cards in the field.
Right, specifically.
Is probably the big thing. I remember when this was just really confusing for everyone. You know, do you remember when people thought Sangan got its effect?
Now, in its defense, when it first came out,
it did. Yeah, that is true.
They made that horrible ruling. For those of you who did not play when Exuse first started, first actually came to the game, the way it was ruled is that if Sangan was detached from an Exuse material, it got its effect. So
Tour Guide Sangan Leviathan?
Tour Guide Sangan Leviathan, next turn Tour Guide or whatever, or this Debris Dragon, because it was popular back then with the Synchro Plants deck. And then there was things like Reborn Tengu, which was probably the quote-unquote best card. So they're like, well, once I Exuse with it, it leaves the field, should not get its effect. So, of course, they had to make an emergency, I want to say an emergency ruling on that.
Which is really sad because, even today, it's one of those things where, you have your friend, you're trying to teach them how to play.
Right.
And, they're reading their cards, they understand everything, and then, suddenly you kind of be like, yeah, but Exuse Materials aren't cards in the field.
Right, but it's not.
But it's a card that's on the field.
Right, it's not in the
but it's
graveyard.
not cards in the field. But it's on the field. But it's not a card
it's
in the
really
field.
in limbo. It's another dimension that's not even considered banished. That's the weird thing, because I actually saw an actual TCG correspondent actually said that way. The cards are literally in limbo on the field. They don't exist there. They become a part of the monster that
they're floating.
Yeah. So they have floating cards. So this is something that's just fucking mind blowing even more if you already thought the game was confusing as is. So.
Which it can be.
Which, yeah.
So next one is missing the timing.
Oh yes.
Now in Konami's defense, I guess they've done a much better job recently of not really making this a thing anymore.
Yeah.
Pretty much nothing misses timing
not
really.
Anymore.
But once upon a timing, this was a huge problem. So many cards, when you're a new player and a card says, when this card is destroyed, you get to do this. You would think, okay, I always get to do this. But then your friend tells you, no, it misses the time. What? I don't get it.
Why?
It's one of those things that it just sounds like it should work. What is it? Dupe Frog. When this card is tributed, search a frog. It sounds like it should work that way. And
the thing with that is, there's always the way Konami tries to make it easier for us is they try to make keywords and differences for us to understand. So there's the when and there's the if, and usually the when is the one that misses, because first off, ifs can't miss time.
Yeah, the wins are always pretty much the ones that are.
Ifs don't miss timing, because wins are, and the reason why wins miss timing, and it has to say when, it says when and then you can. If it says when and you do, it's mandatory, so you'll get it no matter what. But if it says when you can, it's gonna miss, because when means when means immediately. So it says when this happens, immediately after you're supposed to do whatever it says. But the last thing that happens is whatever. Let's say like Pete and the Dark Clown. You remember Pete and the Dark Clown?
Contributed for say something.
Yeah, Pete and the Dark Clown specifically said when this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you can special another one. But since it says when, that means that the last thing that had to happen was Pete hitting the graveyard. But the last thing that happened was a monster being summoned to the field. So Pete and the Dark Clown missed timing, and that confused a lot of people back in those days. And that's when everybody realized that timing was a huge issue. So like I said, nowadays there are not a lot of archetypes that actually have the when you can effect. The last one they actually made that was stupid, but I guess it makes sense. It was Yang Zings.
Yeah.
Yang Zings actually have the when you can.
What I think was just a designed weakness.
Yeah,
they totally intended for it to, which still is kind of annoying.
It is, but it was bad. But pretty much, if it says if, when means that it immediately has to happen. But if just says as long as this does happen, you're going to be able to do that. So.
Number 3, costs.
Oh yes, costs.
This is again something Konami's done better with recently.
They have a lot better.
Pretty much all of these Konami's done better recently with, but costs are always tough to explain to new people, because it's such a it's one of those things where it feels like it should just work, but it doesn't, and it gets really more annoying because nowadays it used to be 800 points for brain control, right?
Right.
Just stuff where it was whatever, right?
Like, bro, just pay 800 life points, take them off.
Pay 800 life points, and if someone explained, oh, it's a cost because you pay life points, and I get it. But nowadays it's things like Dante.
Yeah, Dante
where
said
like,
mill 3, gain 500.
Where like you Valor Dante and you're thinking they're not going to get to mill.
Yeah.
It's like that doesn't work that way.
The card says to even use this effect, you have to pay the cost of detaching and milling off X number of cards, and it's all part of the cost. And like I said, Konami's gotten a lot better with the help, whatever they call it, problem solving card text. Whereas if you pay attention to cards now, they make it to where everything that is a cost comes before a semicolon.
That was the best thing.
That is the best thing.
Because that really clarified a lot of stuff.
So to do this, it says everything before the semicolon is cost. So do everything before that that's cost. So after you pay that cost, if you can't pay the cost, you can't do it first off. And secondly,
that's a big one.
Yeah, and that's like I said with brain control, you pay 800 life points. If you can't pay 800 life points, you couldn't activate brain control.
Yeah,
just cut and dry.
It's one of the tough ones to explain to noobs, but I do think that it's one of the ones where like once they understand it, they understand it. Until it gets to the cards like Dante, that it just feel a little bit more.
Dark Worlds. That was like the biggest one back in the day.
Yeah.
Dark Worlds, because Dark Worlds don't get their effects.
Vortex.
Yeah, Dark Worlds don't get their effects from being discarded for cost. They get their effect from actually being used for effects. And so people are like, but I'm using Lightning Vortex effect to blow up monsters. Yeah, but you're paying the cost of discarding a card, which is different from the Dark World. It was really, really confusing at that time. And I like to say it's still confusing to this day, but Konami's gotten better.
Number 2, the damage step.
The worst part of the game.
This is the thing that I think Konami has not really done that much better with, really. I mean, like, it's such a confusing thing, and the biggest problem with it is just that I think it comes up the most because there's so many cards that just say, like, when this happens, this happens.
Yeah.
Like, but you don't. There's no telling how these things get ordered. Like, it's like I attack a Mystic Tomato with my Flamvel Fire Dog. When this card destroys a monster I battle, you summon a monster from your deck.
Right.
Mystic Tomato, when this card dies I battle, you get another monster.
So what happens?
But then just like, well, what order? What goes first? And it turned out there's like little sub-steps. And do you remember Damage Calc and like Honest back in the day?
Yeah.
When people didn't really like, like, oh, you can only use this. And then there was a whole rumor, oh, it's supposed to be 3, nothing can
This is
stop
probably
it.
the one I think Konami needs to work on because, like, to be honest, like I feel like Konami just wants you to know because, like, I'm a judge, and it's not to be a judge. Like, it's not like they teach you anything. I mean, you just have to take a test. But the thing is, you still need to know your damage step, your damage calculation, and there's like many sub steps. And so you always get into the area of when can I use this effect or when does this effect work. And a lot of cards say damage calculation, and then a lot of them say damage step. But then there's always the issue where people are like, well, since they say doing damage, they use them both simultaneously or something like that.
Always that really ambiguous, like, at the end of the damage step, these things happen. Or like, after damage calculation. Because now there's like, there's after damage calculation, there's like end of the damage step, and
So now we're at a damage step, or we're in damage calculation. Can I do something now?
It can get crazy. So
it's probably the messiest of all of them.
It's the messiest, the most complicated, the least explained. But it's actually not number 1 on our list.
But and also, just in regards to real quick, is that even though it's the worst to actually to understand, Konami does have little ruling things that you can actually look up online. I mean, that's actually how I learned. But they actually have like charts and things that you can pull up that show you how the steps are broken down and what can and cannot be activated in that area. In fact, I got it on my phone somewhere, just like if I ever need to reference it. But because sometimes, I mean, we want to make sure. But you can actually go online, and I suggest everybody do this because it's extremely tricky. But
that's the moral of the video. Check your rulings.
Right, know your rulings.
Resources.
So yeah, go online and there's a chart that tells you exactly what happens in damage step, what happens in damage calc, what can be activated during this, what cannot be activated, and et cetera, et cetera.
So before number 1, I've got 2 runner-ups, I guess you could say, honorable mentions. The first being targeting.
Yeah, targeting.
Shout-outs to targeting.
Shout-out to Ignister.
Yeah, it's
my boy.
Stuff that targets, stuff that doesn't target. And like with other things, it's been clarified a lot better recently. Most stuff, it's pretty self-explanatory when it targets or it doesn't target. But it's still just been something that I think the games had a lot of trouble with.
Right. Does this card target? Does it say it target?
Because stuff used to not really say. It's just like things like Deep Prison that didn't actually say anything, and it was a little ambiguous. Yeah. And second one, shout out to Chains. Surprisingly, didn't make it on this list, but
Chains, that's a whole other story.
Chains is it's almost like not even that's just like a mechanic.
That's a whole other. Chains is a whole other story because you can mess up a chain and not even realize. I mean, chains. God,
yeah. Man. So our number 1 is actually inherent summons versus summons that start a chain.
Yes, indeed. Which by obvious from this obvious statement though, that should let you know that inherent summons don't start a chain.
I think Okay, so funny and kind of maybe unpopular opinion here. I actually hate the term inherent summon because it's one of those things. The one reason I don't like it is because it's actually really just like a player-made term.
Yeah.
Because Konami has yet to, even in their rulebook right now, the most up-to-date version, our definition of inherent summons in the rulebook is just addressed as a monster that special summons itself. That's what the rulebook says. The rulebook even makes a distinction like, there are monsters that can result from a card effect or that start a chain, but the monsters that we would call inherent, they just call this monster special summons itself.
Which is very vague, because you guys remember Dragon Rulers, they special summoned themselves, but they were considered an effect.
Yeah, and it's just like, but then you have things like Infernoids, which like, it gets so, this is the rule that always comes up with like not Seven Tools of the Bandit, Blackhorn Heaven. Blackhorn Heaven, Thunder King Ryo, where it's like, Thunder King says, and I get it from a noob's perspective.
Right.
I get the struggle.
From what this card
says, when a monster would be special summoned, you contribute this card, negate it. And then you destroy an Abyss Land, and they say, activate effect, and like bring out their Abyss Lead, and you're like, okay, I'll use, Thunder King's effect. Nope, you can't do that.
But why not?
But why? Because it's not a special summon, but it is a special summon. No, it's not. Yes, it is. No, it's not. But it says if a monster would be special summoned,
it's a special summon, but it starts a chain. But that doesn't matter, because Thunder King didn't say anything about the chain, so.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I think even the idea of a summon and starting a chain is a little confusing.
It's very confusing.
For them to put as like a rule in a game, like, I don't know.
I mean, I understand why there needs to be a difference, but it's still extremely confusing. Like I said, if you're new to it or if you just don't have enough experience with it.
Because then people want to negate like Shaddoll Fusion and stuff.
I get that a lot. When I play Shaddolls, I would go, Shaddoll Fusion, bring out Window, Thunder King negate. Well, you can't, but.
Yeah, and it just. To me, and I feel like, there are many things that could have been number one on this list.
I lied.
But I think that earned it just because it will come up early, and it's the one that literally sounds the most, like, conflicting.
Yeah.
When a monster will be special summoned, you can use this.
Monster
got special summoned, but you can't use it.
Why not?
And it's just, it's a real issue. It's a real problem. Konami, I don't really know that they've, like, really made it much better these days. I mean, like, sort of.
Not inherent, not that. They've done nothing for that at all.
It's still pretty much just, yeah.
It's how it's been since the game started. I mean, they've just enforced that, it doesn't work that way, but they haven't changed anything or tried to make it easier to understand.
It really is just one of those things you're just expected to know. And
you're expected to know and learn the hard way.
It's idiomatic almost. I mean, more or less, like, you just gotta just remember the rule. That's how it goes.
Research, baby. Do some research. Ask questions. Don't be afraid. There's no stupid questions unless, there are stupid questions. But, things like this, there are no stupid questions.
So, those are 10 rather useful things. Not 10, that was 5. I'm so used to doing top 10s. Those are 5 rather useful things that you will maybe want to tell your friends about. These problems come up a lot.
And they will come up again.
Alright, tired of talking about that. Let's plug this mat. Buy a Team APS mat. It's really good. You can buy it from Inked Gaming. There will be a link in the description if you want to see all of our beautiful faces. Get it. That's all I have to say about that. Also, I don't know when this video will be uploaded, but if it's uploaded in the week I think it'll be uploaded, we'll be at YCS Houston this weekend, and if this video goes up after like April 9th, then we were at YCS Houston last weekend, meeting people, signing things, taking pictures, dueling, talking,
kissing hands and shaking babies.
Existing. So, hope you enjoyed the video. Subscribe for more Yu-Gi-Oh! Thumbs up if you liked it. And in the comments, what rulings do you think are the most confusing in Yu-Gi-Oh! That we didn't mention in this video? Because there are loads.
And also, what did you do to try to help verse yourself on the rulings?
And everyone's going to say, like, pendulum summoning.
Everybody had the question about that.
People can complain about
I don't even know how to explain that one.